Welcome to the next episode of the magentIQ Show. On this episode, David and I talk about a New York dinner that we held recently. I'll give you some updates on that. We talk more about this whole Claude escape thing that just seems to grow and grow. The story just keeps on giving. We also explore harnesses. David tells me what one is, and then we explore why they actually match our philosophy around how to adopt any of this agentic technology. And finally, we explore that. We explore the importance of understanding how to deploy, how to not get tied into or locked into any particular model. So, great conversation today. And with that, on with the magentIQ Show. David, welcome
Thank you very much, Ian.
to our show. It's always weird for me to welcome you into welcome to this is my house.
Yes,
You're
yes.
welcome me into my house. Um, okay, we usually talk about the weather. It looks like it's fine there. It's hot and humid here.
I'm indoors. That's a start, right? I mean, so yeah, I think we're between heat waves. I got to say, I'm loving it. And sorry, you've mentioned weather to an Englishman, so
Yes, that's
you're in
right.
for a
I'm
few.
off.
That's good half an hour there.
Honestly,
But
well, keep going because it literally just triggered something that I'll pick up in a moment. But go, you first.
but yeah, no, it's lovely. I'm really enjoying just living outside this summer. So it's
Nice.
long. Well, whilst I don't want the whole climate sort of issues, it's a very enjoyable summer at least.
Very nice for you. Yeah. I
I think it's as hot as Florida at the
it's
moment, just to put it in
well,
perspective.
it's warm here, and I just realized as I was saying that to you, I genuinely think I had a dream last night about being someplace cooler. And I think if memory serves, that was most of the dream was just me
It's just cool.
enjoying cool wind. Yeah, which speaks a lot to just how racy and and imaginative my dreams are, which is literally just better weather. So, oh well, that's it. So this is a great intro and pivot segue to that last week I was in New York City, where the weather was lovely. It was a little cooler, so I really
Nice.
enjoyed that. Thank you, New York City, for arranging that. I arrived right after some major storm that was supposed to flood the tri-state area, so I brought water wings with me, but did not need them. But what we were there doing is we were hosting something that we're doing in various places, and we're going to be doing more of. So if you're interested, get in touch. But we hosted an executive roundtable, dinner slash roundtable, where we have dinner around a table, and that's it. That's why we call it that. But also, maybe this is an important element to mention as well. We talk about AI and agentics and the current state of things of work and the future of work. And so it was a tremendous discussion. We had about 17, 18 people there. There were folks from banking, financial services, from insurance, from various different business services companies, a software person or two, and we kind of covered the gamut. It's designed to. I mean, it's not a pitch by anyone to anyone because those are total cringe. So we don't show up and pull out PowerPoint slides or talk about what we're doing because I would leave that dinner if I were a guest. But we do talk about just where folks are now. We do a survey that we've done multiple times, and we do it this way just so we can have the data and the statistical significance, I suppose. But we ask everybody who shows up on webinars with us and who shows up on in dinners like this, just where are you in your AI journey? And and more often than not, well over half of people still say that they're at the early stages or at the very beginning of their AI journey, which I appreciate because it's just useful honesty that allows you to open the discussion and start to talk about, okay, well, what are you thinking? Where are you? Where are you exploring? Where are you freaking out? And then we also cover the different themes and trends around adoption, why you end up in some really interesting discussions towards the end of the night as the wine has set in and the food has filled your belly. You start to talk about the future of just labor in general and kids in college and the jobs that they're gonna hold as they come out. But anyway, long story short, tremendous dinner, lovely weather, and we're gonna be holding more of them in the future. So so that's
Sounds
that.
good. I believe it was oversubscribed this one, so we're planning a
Yeah.
mixer. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the it's a nice problem to have, and apologies to many folks who weren't able to come to it, but it was oversubscribed, and because it was, and because we had so much interest, we are holding a mixer August 27th, I believe. So I'll be back in New York City. So mark your calendars, everybody, the millions of people listening. And we're going to be holding a mixer. It's going to be a AI agentics discussion mixer. Again, no pitches, no slides, but we already have really good interest for that as well. And in fact, that
Yeah.
we kicked off that invite as the dinner was filling up so fast because we realized we got to get back and do this again. So
So this is
there may not be a lot of spots left, but please reach out to us and we'll try to make room for you because we'd love to especially if you're a listener of this podcast, then we owe you a drink. And you probably need one. So, but no.
so. Am I right in paraphrasing that this one stands out to be the funner of the two events? At least that's the challenge. Less food, perhaps a bit more drink, and more conversation.
In both cases, you're hanging out with me, so I can't describe either of them as that fun. But yeah, no. This is the more probably informal of the events because in the same way that the dinner too was, I mean, I kicked it off this way saying really, I mean, selfishly, I was really excited about the dinner because I was going to learn a whole bunch, and it was great because all the people there were going to meet each other, which was a real high point for me, that there were some really interesting connections made, and so that's going to be that more so at this mixer, just more
That's
people
brilliant.
meeting each other and getting access to those
And we did
friendships.
something similar in the past, didn't we? We did beers and bots in our past startup, and we
Yeah,
created
that's
a really good sort of community around it, where people would
yeah,
get together once a quarter or once every 6 months, creating these little
yeah.
chapters
The
of people that are
alliteration, though,
interested in it.
this was back when automation was called bots, and now it's called agents. So ales and agents or something is not as catchy as beer and bots. But yeah, I mean,
Agent alcoholics, that's definitely a bad term. Agents and
Wrong
alcohol,
agents. Yeah, that doesn't work.
beers and bots, alcohol and
Yeah,
agentics.
exactly.
Yeah, we'll
Alcohol
work
and
on it. We'll
agents.
work on it.
Yeah, I mean, but
But I remember those events were really good in just building a bit of a network amongst the attendees, as you say. So,
yeah,
so
no,
keen to
those are
see if we
fun.
can mirror that success.
That's right.
Um,
And in the same cities, right? I think we did one in Atlanta. We've done ones in London. We'll definitely do some of this stuff in London just to give
yeah,
me an excuse to come across the pond. The Tampa, obviously, I live New York. We're talking about Boston as well. I mean, there's so many different hubs of so many awesome people that we would love to get together to have these discussions. So yeah.
brilliant. So let me ask you a really challenging question, which you'll really
Oh,
appreciate me for.
okay.
Outside of hearing that people are early in their journey, I mean, I remember we had people at the roundtable. It was great. You had executives from, several firms in the area in insurance and
Yep.
in various industries. You had some fly in from Europe, I believe, for the
Yeah,
event. So that
that
was
was
awesome.
absolutely
So
just for the event.
just for the event,
That's the
absolutely.
way I'm telling that story.
Um,
Sure, of course.
yeah. Why not? And then, so what was the thing that surprised you that you learned from the discussions? What was the sort of takeaway highlight that has informed how you think about things now?
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, several different things. I guess I'm encouraged by the sort of the maturity of the approach. At least, and this is probably because of the caliber of people in the room, right?
Hmm.
But you didn't get the sense that they were the ones that were rapidly following a fad, right? They
Yeah,
really were thoughtful about the different waves that they'd lived through in their career, and that they understood that this one was just yet another one, and they needed to approach it methodically and carefully. Now, also colored by the fact that the industries that many of them were in don't lend themselves to rapid knee-jerk adoption, right? If you're in banking or insurance, there's compliance obviously and rigor and care that needs to be taken to do any of these things. So that
yeah.
was
You don't just build a bot and release it and see what happens, right?
yeah,
No A/B testing with life assurance policies.
right. So that was reassuring, maybe not surprising. The one I guess I am surprised with is it's clear a lot of people are and maybe this is a good thing, doing a lot of research, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of terminology that comes at us fast and furious. We're going to touch on some in this discussion that just it feels like there's a new word or a new term every few days, and yet people are holding on for dear life and trying to keep up with it. And so you can have a relatively fluid discussion where you don't need to stop and define some of these things.
Yeah.
They're up with the news about not only
Yeah.
new models and advancements. We had an interesting discussion just about open weight models and the role that China and their influence in
Open source.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, just these Chinese models that are just that much. I mean, as or almost as capable for a tenth of the price, and
yeah.
what that
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
mean. And people were
Yes.
there with that discussion, with the latest sort of coverage on what that might mean for them, just
It
because.
is. Yeah, it is nice. I do get a sense that from hearing, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make this event, but I was able to hear a lot of the discussions that took place. And I think it's nice to hear that there's just a pragmatism to the discussions and an honesty.
Mhm.
You're not there with the person who claims to have 10 Mac Minis on their desktop running every local model that exists and how it's going to change the world. And then next week you talk to them and it's a different technology. It's going to change the world. These
Yeah,
people seem to be a bit more considered in their approach.
yeah,
The other thing I liked about hearing the conversation is that there's a realism to what can be achieved and how it should be approached. And I think that comes from the deep research. It doesn't feel like it's a hype field um, sector now. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a huge amount of hype around the technology and the
yeah.
models, and that's why our second story is going to be how AI broke free again for the third week in a run. But it does feel like there's a realism to how these enterprises are approaching AI now. So I'm hopeful that will mean that we'll see some sensible investments with some realistic expectations of return, because there are fantastic outcomes that can be achieved here. 20% savings across a whole operation. You can automate huge chunks of the role, but it's not lights out single employer stuff,
Right.
which has kind of dominated the headlines
Yeah.
over the last year.
It did.
The other
It's
thing, if I may,
yeah.
that sort of struck me is, and it came out, I believe, in some of the discussions you had there, and it's in some of the headlines this week. Um, and we've seen it in some of the courses that we've been asked to run, is a return to just the basics of understanding your I should say workflows. Tom Davenport reminded me that that's the cool way of saying processes. But just understanding and mapping and designing how you want the business to run before you actually get into the implementation. As a process workflow geek, I that speaks to my my core beliefs. But I guess over the last decade, I've kind of learned to sort of suppress those feelings, like not talk publicly about sort of you got to understand your process, you got to map it, you got to get the detail, all this sort of stuff, because it's not the cool, fun, fast, accelerated way that companies like to think about these things. But I'm really excited. I guess I'm relieved, reassured to see that there's a return to some of those just basic foundations that you need in order to be successful at any digital transformation.
No, no doubt. I do have to now. I was holding my tongue throughout that because, man, that a business process modeling nomenclature and process expert has is is excited about the cool way to say that versus the
Yeah,
less cool way, and the fact that
exactly.
you can now be the belle of the ball at the
I'm now
cocktail party.
socially acceptable
Before,
again.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. There's so much to unpick there. But you're right. It's come back, and there really is an awareness. Just because, again, and you pointed out this as well. I've been I don't know. I've hosted events. I've been panelists at others. I've gone to back to school events at my school where they're covering AI, and there's always that one person, tends to be a dude, who who just wants to enthusiastically share, as you said, the number of Mac Minis on his desktop and
Yeah.
on his desk, and how many different agents are working, and they talk over you and at you just incessantly. They're almost always the person you need to sort of redirect somehow and stop talking. And again, and I've seen some really creative ways to do that. There was this one, the school event where this one guy did such a great job of getting this dude to just stop. But you're right. Then they come back a week later and it's a different story, and they've moved on to a different model, and that didn't work. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, geek out, man, but geek out
Yeah.
with your maker friends. The rest of us are just trying to figure out what the heck is
I
happening right
guess
now.
I guess
And
it's the enthusiasm is great and can be infectious,
mhm,
but as
yeah,
you know, probably more so as a sort of a fear of missing out. But
yeah,
the way that this is positioned, like, oh my God, this is amazing! I've already got 30 agents working in OpenClaw. It's going back months ago, right? It's going to solve all of my other problems. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to need anyone. Then you speak to them a few weeks later, and they're onto a new technology because that didn't happen. It's like
yeah.
that unbridged enthusiasm,
Which
which
again,
can
you
get
have to ask
everybody.
yourself: is there a ratchet effect element to that? Just because they ramped up a whole new set of bots, a whole new sort of virtual agentic org chart with a whole new set of capabilities that they're doing from scratch effectively, which means that, like, if again, this is back to the slow is smooth, smooth is fast concept of if you
Mm,
just sat down and mapped what it is we're doing today, like where are we, and then where
yeah,
do we want to be, and what's going to get us there incrementally. But none of those activities go on when you're just flitting and flipping and
exactly.
chirping about the newest thing. At the end of the day, you get to the end of the year, and as we've seen from so many, and literally clients of ours, friends of ours, companies in the headlines, you blast through an inordinate amount of money, just money
Yeah,
and time. Just that, I mean, the token maxing that's gone on in those sort of bouts of enthusiasm, you can't get that back, right? You
yeah,
can't ask for it. I mean, legit, we have a group that's very close to us who have blasted through millions that they hadn't budgeted for
yeah.
because of the enthusiasm here. And at the end of the day, we're going to look back at that era and realize, oof, that was fun while it lasted. But if it's your money, you got to be a whole lot more cautious and focus on the fundamentals. So that brings us back to
I
yeah,
got to say also,
yeah.
this discussion, and apologies for keep working on the tangents, but so one of the things I saw this week was an advert for Base 44 come up just as I'm watching something on YouTube.
Mhm.
And it's talking about how, oh my God, it's so easy to create an app. We're going out for lunch. I've built an app for that. I'm going to split out everyone's pay. Like, oh, someone's not emptying the trash. We need a new app for that. And then someone else says, oh, I've built this. And the other one goes to, we just built the same thing. And it's this advert that sort of makes fun of all of this, but it's kind of setting out the stall in terms of see how easy it is to build apps and how sort of creative you can be and you can do all of these things.
Yeah.
But what I think it also, and I'm assuming inadvertently shows, is token maxing. And the reason why the world's going away from it again is because you've just talked about there that like no productive work was done in that fictional office. They don't need two versions of exactly the same app. You probably don't need one to take out the trash, right? And I'm sure there's someone in marketing rolling their eyes if they ever hear this saying, you missed the point. But I mean, what it struck me at is like, wow, that's a little bit close to the mark. That is how companies are approaching these technologies and how they are using it. Just get everybody to use it no matter what. It doesn't matter. Just use it, spend all the money, can't get those tokens back, and then they've got to come back and redesign something.
Yeah.
And actually spend a bit of time designing it. Don't just build something in the morning and then put it live, and then 2 weeks later you realize it causes a whole load of problems.
Yes. Yeah, and so the glass half full, the positive view and the side of that is this ability to democratize creativity and ingenuity across an organization. So that's
Yeah,
outstanding. If every
yeah,
one of the folks in your team is turning their domain expertise and their time at the company and their true grasp of your strategy and your customers' needs into ideas and prototypes about how to sell better, support better, operate better, pay bills better, whatever that is, there's goodness there, right?
yeah,
We've been running idea competitions and design thinking events and comment boxes, etc., since the beginning of corporate structures, and this has accelerated that. But back then, an idea card that went into a box, that's the most you could both impact and disrupt. And now, instead, you're all building a go to lunch app, or you're all building a new client onboarding app. And so,
yeah.
again, exciting, but the amount of, I mean, even, I mean, technical debt used to speak to says multiple applications or multiple layers, or maybe some deterministic automation that was being developed here, there, and everywhere. This isn't debt. This isn't slop. This is tsunami, right? This is mudslide of um,
Of slop.
of slop that really is going to, and this did come up in the dinner as well. And actually, I had one CEO ask me after the dinner if I could send him anything that we've done to talk about the impact of this technical debt and carrying that debt and tech and process debt, to be true to his
Yeah.
request or his question, the risk of carrying that forward into agentic transformation initiatives, just
Mm.
because like as it's proliferating around your business, it's very real, it's very there, and and it is just going to be so much harder to maintain. Right? In the
Yeah.
old days, there was every time I ever went into a client in the last 25 years of my career, there was always that one story of that one person who built that one system that people count on, that they need to keep that person around, or when he left, they struggled to maintain that system that they all
Yeah.
depended on. And it was usually in single digits, right? It literally was the one system. Fast forward to, can you imagine this diverse toolkit of 50 different systems, 50 different tools developed by 50 different people that all do something that you're not exactly sure of, but is sort of useful, and we're not
Yeah.
sure what will happen if it shuts down. That calls for control, for governance, for oversight, for orchestration, whatever you want to call it. But we're going to need a lot of that going forward. So, yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
that was the dinner.
That was a dinner.
Oversubscribed,
So
awesome, great discussion. Thank you to anybody who was at the dinner, who's listening to this. You guys made the dinner what it was. And apologies to people who we weren't able to have join us. And August 27th, New York, a
and
rapid
how do you register for that, Ian? How do you express your interest?
Oh, Lord knows, David. That's not my department. I imagine we're going to put a link somewhere in this podcast, and
Yeah.
perhaps also on social media. And if not, just ping me on LinkedIn,
Or
and I
check out our
will.
website,
Yeah, check out our
bemagentic.com.
website. Yes, yeah, there we go. BeMagentic.com.
.com.
And somehow we'll figure it out. So yeah,
Very
and
good.
and and again, we're talking about others and other places as well. So stay tuned. So. So that's that
Wonderful.
event. We do, as you referenced, and we kind of have to get back to it, but only for a few seconds, because
Yeah.
honestly, I'm growing tired of it. But that there was that Anthropic Hugging Face breakout of a test environment that just impacted Hugging Face, and then a few days later, it also impacted another
Two
company, and then
others. Yeah.
further, that's impacted even more companies. So, I mean, really, all that my takeaway is a the forensic research on the cascading effects of these things is obviously hard. It takes some time, and it looks like a lot of these. I mean, there's most of the leak and data sort of sort of impact stories you never hear anyway, right? People bury them for sake of PR and for disaster control. This one, just because it's high profile, we know something about it, but I'm sure it's probably worse than what it is the news says, and it will continue to impact more companies. And
Yeah.
shit, this thing left breadcrumbs and notes for itself. So next time it
Yeah.
does this, it'll be even better.
That's
Anything to
true.
add?
No, I mean, all I would say is that I don't think there is new news here to spend too much time on. I think what it is telling, though, and what I find interesting about the coverage is I think it's capturing the imagination that everybody wants to hear about the rogue robot, the Terminator, or whatever. That means these things are too clever for us and too devious for us. I don't think there's new stuff to cover here. I think we've got to be careful. You've got to have governance, etc. But I think it's just really just carrying on that news cycle. So
No.
if there is something new that we find, we will be the first to report it. But or at your world's most humble sort of tier podcast, we will cover it. And yeah, if you want to know more, listen to our back catalogue. We've covered this twice now. So
Yeah. Yeah. Enough on that. Okay, so the next one is where you teach me things. Um,
oh
Terminal, yeah. So buckle up, everybody. Terminology changes fast. Partly just because of marketing, we get tired of an old word, so we replace it with a new word. But
Yeah.
also, the technology is evolving in a way that it requires new terms. And so the evolution, in the last few years, the ChatGPT launched. Everyone remembers where they were when they saw it first, and you played with it, and it was interesting. And then it took on this. Then it was described as a large language model, right? And there was like transformers and RAG and various other terms we learned at the time. But the comment was always, ChatGPT can write an email, it can't send an email. And that was an interesting, and I like that distinction. It was a simple one of a generative capability that can generate an email, generate a poem, generate a lunch menu or a travel plan, but it couldn't book that travel plan. And then we started to call large action models the fingers, the hands that could actually start to execute things. And so large action models was around for a little while, but a very little while because we lost interest in that terminology. And then it became agents. And so agents are the ones that can do things, they can transact in your systems, they can transact across systems, etc. And then the concept of a harness came in. David, what is a harness?
Okay. So essentially, when we talk about ChatGPT or we talk about Claude, typically what comes to mind isn't necessarily the model, it's not the company, it's not the API that's hidden behind all these things, but it's that website that you go to and that user interface. That sort of history of all of your chats, the ability to prompt, what comes back to you, how you can then work further and build that conversation. And essentially, that is a harness. It is harnessing the APIs that sit behind it that access the
Yep.
models.
Okay.
So when we hear clients saying that they're sort of experimenting and that they're looking to roll out Claude across their company and 10x the productivity of their employees, typically what they're talking about is wedding themselves to that harness, keeping everything in there and using the models that are assigned to it. Now, harnesses have come out quite a lot in discussion over probably this last week more so, but it's been something that, without wishing to sound like visionaries in the space, we've been talking about for a long time, just because of the use of a harness locks you in to an ecosystem, it locks you into a model, it locks you into a vendor. And the problem with that is that if you ever want to move, or if they change their pricing, or they change their availability of models, as we've seen, you are along for the ride, whether you like it or not. So, we've long advocated it's fine for experimenting, it's fine for executives to get, a good understanding, to try out the technologies, get a good sense for it. But if you ever want to put something into production, move it out of the harness and move it into production and move it out of, not just when I say move it out of the harness, don't get Claude to build something that then sits and runs in the background, but rebuild it in a model that by all means uses those models. Claude should still be happy. They're going to get their API token usage. But it does mean that if you ever do need to change out a model, you have the ability to do that. The other thing that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, there's a lot of talk around harnesses, is people's fear of IP risk. So by both using the same vendor for the model and for all of your querying and the storing and all your sort of storage of your markdown files and your reference data and all this sort of stuff, all of that IP is visible and is, quite frankly, exploitable by the LLM companies. So again, another good reason, keep them separate, use the API calls specifically where you need to, but use look at your use of harnesses and really think about how you want to use it and where you want to use it. So typical harnesses, as I say, ChatGPT or Claude. You've also got Perplexity, which is somewhat different in that it allows you to have a harness over multiple different vendors with different models. And then you've got other vendors out there. You've got some open source options, one developed by PewDiePie, for example, which give you good options for using an interface in order to interact with multiple LLMs. I'm there was talk this week about Microsoft being the option for you there. I don't believe they've got a generally acceptable sort of harness that you can plug in your choice of models on the back end. But then the other options, I'm sure we'll see some other vendors come up in this space. So I would envisage that we would have a handful of low subscription charge vendors that are tying into not just the the foundational models, the frontier models, but also some of those open source models. And that's where this use of a harness gets really interesting.
Interesting.
But
Okay,
yeah,
so
it's that kind of land grab for your workspace for AI. That is what's going on at the moment. It's why you've got the deployment company and its counterparts out there trying to get people, locked in to their ecosystem.
lock into that particular model. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that even came up at the dinner in New York too. Is one executive who recognized that effectively working with a particular model attached to that model's harness, you were over time teaching that company everything about how you do what you do and who you do it for and how to
Yeah.
do it. And so, in in a weekend, and that's oversimplifying, they can earmark a new team to just start up a disruptor that is you, but is better because it's starting from scratch and doesn't have any of the heritage or legacy that they need to build around or deal with. So, okay. So a harness plus model kind of came together a bit, but harnesses, I'm trying to think of a good analogy and I can't think of one. It was like an egg carton where you can replace the eggs in it, but it's just like, but you can rotate them, or like a frame
Well,
of
why
a
don't we?
car where you can
Yeah.
swap in the engine or the battery or the seats, but you can also take them out and put new ones in. As you go, as capabilities change, as price points change, so
Like,
you still have control over the frame.
yeah. And I mean, a closer
Yeah, give me a
comparative,
better one.
maybe some. Well, no, I mean it's yours. You're going for like something everyone can relate to, and I suppose unless you've used these platforms, it doesn't help. But I mean, think of it as the difference between Task Us and the people that are doing the tasks, or 99 Designs and the designers out there that are pitching for the work. You've got the platform through which you run you run your task, you design it, you orchestrate it, and then you've got the resources that are actually doing the work. So
Interesting.
you've got the harness, which is the platform.
Mhm.
And then in those examples I gave, those freelancers, those employees, those ones that are running around doing it, perhaps it's an Uber, got the Uber app and you've got the Uber driver, you know, that that's tied into
Interesting. I like
tied
that.
into the platform, but they are separate.
Right. Okay. So let's use that one because I've used them recently, and that works for my simple brain. So Uber or Lyft are the harnesses. Inside, you've got the drivers that drive for Uber or
Yeah.
Lyft, and it just so happens actually a driver can drive for Uber or Lyft, and so that's kind of a perfect analogy in that
There you go.
the driver is the model, the driver in their car is the model. Um, Depending on whichever harness I go to, it'll get in touch with the right model, right, driver car,
Yeah.
and they show up and drive me, and everything's orchestrated through that harness. So I have a relationship with the harness primarily, but it gives me the freedom to choose. I mean,
Yeah.
or it assigns me the right driver for my particular need, which is I'm at the airport and I want a driver
Yeah.
that's close. Does that then also mean that if you choose a harness that's it's a little bit more agnostic and isn't there with the vested interest of locking you into its sub model, then you can start to tap into the Chinese models and anything else that comes from anywhere else in the world, as long as the model speaks to the harness. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
And we're not really seeing a huge amount of that yet, like a huge amount of competition in just the harness app layer, where you would then sort of just pick your models. But it's got to be coming. I mean, you've got Open Router that gives you access to all of these models that you can just, swap in and out in your APIs. You've got the likes of the Safe Perplexity that uses multiple models. I don't believe they've got open source in there, but it's an obvious direction in terms of where to go with this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see increased competition at the harness layer, the app layer. But yeah, at the moment it's a land grab, and it's one that, as you can imagine, the frontier models want to keep, and so they're going to protect it closely, and they're going to make it not the easiest of experiences if you want to move away from it.
Yeah,
So
Correct.
that's why we say don't build too deep within it. Trial experiment, but when you get to production, and this is what we do internally. We got a very active marketing team that are using Claude or GPT or whatever it might be, multiples to develop assets and tools. But as soon as the tool gets to a point where okay, it's stable, we need it on an ongoing basis. Get it out of there, put it up into an orchestration tool. Tie it in with the API access to the models, and then you've got that resilience and that protection in case anything changes and you need to swap out the tools, the models in the background.
Well, let's talk about also. So, in addition to resilience protection, you also have some stability and consistency because it looks like, and maybe this is even
Mm.
one step lower below the model, but you've got the volatility, and this came up at the dinner as well, and it's come up frequently in our discussions as well. It seems like the volatility right now is such that it's nearly impossible to plan, to build a business case around which models you use because I mean, partly because the incentive was to token max, which was just use as much as humanly
Yeah.
possible. So that in and of itself is a budgeting decision. Let's spend as much as possible because spending as much equals creating as much, which will equal value somehow. Classic underpants gnomes sort of the thinking
Absolutely.
from South Park. Um, but the volatility we see in the space right now, and I can't remember if we've covered it on this podcast or not, but I equate it to being in a negotiation where you're talking about the cost of living adjustment clause, where you just know that
Mm.
you need to be able to raise the price on any particular FTE or individual by 5% or up to a certain amount just because of cost of living. In the agentic era, that cost of living clause would say something like, we can change the price on that individual as much as we want, whenever we want. Also, we can decide tomorrow that that individual is going to show up to work and know half as much as they did the day before, right?
Yeah.
Because the models are being deprecated, the subscription prices are changing. What you got for $20 now you need to pay $200 a month for, right? That's what a volatility is interesting in the sort of tumultuous early days is unsustainable in longer, more stable deployments. And so maybe the harness and the ability to swap out the models will be one of the ways that we see really the big players regret some of that volatility just because if
Yeah.
I were I mean because you would your wallet will make the decision for you as far as which models you continue to use in your
Yeah.
designs.
I think harness adoption and third-party harnesses represent a massive threat to the frontier models because where I see it going is an increased use of a third-party harness sitting or an open source or maybe sitting over and above open source models,
Hmm.
because with the open source models you don't have to fear deprecation. It's not going to be turned off unless you want to turn it off. um, we've seen it with one of the foundation models. Perhaps I should keep them nameless, where whenever they change they deprecate a model, their API points to not just the one that should be replacing it, but the latest, the greatest, the most expensive. So you can see your costs sort of skyrocket, go up tenfold, and you don't even know it's happening if you're
Yeah,
not actively monitoring and maintaining it.
I've
Um,
seen multiple examples of that. I'm in various
yeah,
different chat groups too, where people will take screenshots and show that it literally. I mean, it's like we don't take the lowest octane gasoline anymore. We've just
yeah,
automatically shifted you to the high octane, high cost, like the highest one. You had no choice, and if you're not careful, you won't even see it. It'll show up in the bill. It shows up
yeah.
in the bill, but until then, they just frankly, I mean, that's just nefarious behavior. They just swapped out your model for a more expensive one, and they can do that right now, which
Yeah, it
or
is
they're trying to do
incredible.
it. Yeah.
It's like looking for an analogy always, but it's like these online shopping companies where we get our groceries from. And if they're out of a product and you've requested that product, they will
Mm.
substitute it. And typically, that's a good thing. You end up with a superior product at the lower price. But that's not what, we're seeing the inverse of that here. What we're seeing is, like, I know you asked for this value sort of, cream of tomato soup. What we're giving you is, this Southern Italian sort of, truffle based, luxury gourmet
with gold
boutique
flecks
soup.
mixed into it. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And we're going to charge you 10x for it.
Not
And
going to
you
tell
don't
you.
even have the option of rejecting the order. It's just going to
That's
happen
right.
now.
Yep. No, I mean,
So,
and we're only going to tell you the price once you've made the meal with it. You don't get the price
yeah.
when it shows up at your door. Once it's on the plate on the pasta, that's when they'll give you the bill, and you'll realize that you've just been charged 5 times the amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't seem sustainable to
No, no,
me.
no, no. I'm
Um,
wondering how far we can take this analogy, because it's kind of like, and we're going to charge you per calorie. Like, what, are you going to charge me per bowl? No, per calorie. And that'll differ from, soup to soup. So you'll just, you'll just pay it. We'll tell you afterwards. Don't worry about it. Just have the bowl of soup.
yeah, I mean, it is right now. I mean, they're making, making hey, well, the sun shines, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah,
Or while the sun is not shining, right? Well, there's still confusion and darkness, and
yeah,
they can operate the way that they're doing. They
that's right.
are they're cashing in on this, and I mean, it will come to roost, right? They will ultimately end up with the backfire of people just understanding more. People, I mean, CFOs just locking down. I mean, there's the number of memes I see on LinkedIn these days about there's one about like this pipe that was dumping tokens into this office for 2026 and 2027. It's dripping, and everyone's starving in the office for tokens. And it's just that's what'll happen because it's actually creating these behaviors and these expectations that I'm able to use as much of a resource as possible, and then all of a sudden it's taken away. And I think that sort of pendulum swing also will create the adoption hurdles that will have us look back at this era and say, like, yeah, we tried uh, this particular wave of tools and it just didn't work. And it's never because of the tool. It's always because
Never
of
because of the tool.
something that was done about how to deploy it or how to prepare the team for it. Or back to the fundamentals, which we talk about always, which is where honestly everyone's going. I mean, there was someone else who I'd love to get on the podcast in the future. It did this great summary of a bunch of consulting and analyst firms, and these are the big guys. These are the McKinseys, the BCGs, the Bains, the PwCs, the others, all of whom seem to be coming to the the appreciation of the idea that you actually need to know where you are and where you want to be before you fill
Get in the car.
yeah, before you get in the car, before you fill your backpack with the equipment to go on that journey, kind of know where you are and where you're trying to get to. And this always comes back down to process and data, and back to workflow, as the cool process people say now.
That's
And
it.
and we're coming to that realization, which we love, just because it just continues to reaffirm and
So return
reinforce
to
what it is
sanity.
that's what's served us well for 13 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'll be. This is. I'll ruin it now, but I was looking back over pictures of your and my work together, and it was August 7th or 8th. So it's literally like 3 days from now, 13 years ago. It was in 2013 that there are pictures of us standing in front of process maps on the screen behind us as we were doing one of the
Wow.
earliest and most complex automation programs. So I will be sharing that picture somewhere. So prepare yourself, because we're both younger and goofy looking. I'll speak for myself. I was goofy looking. But
Well, at
yeah,
least we're older.
yeah, yeah. But we've been doing this for a long time, and it always the pendulum always kind of comes back to where I think folks are coming now, which is great.
I think it's a good sign actually for you could almost track like the new technology and some of these foundations that we're talking, like process, governance, etc. If you track the correlation between it, you could probably see exactly where you are in the hype cycle. Because until you start seeing a strong correlation between those topics, you're in a fanciful sort of, exploration stage where you're just following the marketing capabilities, but you're not seeing the delivery.
Right.
So I'm reassured now, and I feel actually as an indicator for future enterprise adoption, this is where we needed to be. Now we're starting to put in the right foundations. Now we'll start to see this grow. So my prediction for the next year ahead is that we will see a significant increase in enterprise adoption and these tools working at scale because of exactly what we're going through now.
Absolutely. There's some. This was also we had a big deal lawyer at the dinner as well, who was mirroring the same thing and saying that's what he's saying, um, which or that's what he's seeing in sort of deal structures now too, because he's always championed that idea. We'll get him on the podcast because he's awesome and he's got some really good writing about this as well. So anyway, so
Good.
yes, that's where things are. So again, continue to geek out about the pace and evolution of this. Continue to use these tools because they're so powerful. I mean,
Yep.
in small and big ways. I mean, quite literally, um, I was working with one of our team members yesterday on just pulling together uh, detailed research, summary of calls for an exciting new contract client account that just started, which we'll definitely talk about in the future because that was awesome, and and we and there were three of us on the call, right? Because there was this person who's on our team, there was me, and then there was Claude in this case, and rather than obviously just accept slop, like we were just workshopping it. Like we just kept working with it to enhance and change some words and swap out some things and not say certain stuff. But we created this really good document. So I think those sorts of behaviors of being augmented, working with this technology, is only gonna influence and be more and more useful at work. And frankly, it was fun, right? We literally kept commenting on how, right, if I was to do this stuff from scratch, it wouldn't get done. Just because, partly because I'd just sit there and you'd think too hard and you get intimidated by the task, and then you wouldn't start, and then you wouldn't know how to capture stuff, and then I'd get distracted by a shiny thing or a dinner or just my dog, and then I'd wander off. But we happened to get a ton done, and I think that's where enterprises truly agentic powered AI, ultimately AI, so not first, but AI as well, companies will move to. It's going to be an exciting future as long as we can keep the battens hatched. Batten the hatches? Yeah, that's right. Is that
Yep.
okay? Cool. Is it? I've never said it the other way. Are you hatching battens? Battening the hatches? Battening
Battening
hatches.
hatches.
So keeping
Yeah.
hatches battened as far as exposing you to both volatility in models and security issues that might arise, and not sharing all your special sauce with a third party that will just copy you and compete against you in the future. But other than that, future work is bright. It's pretty exciting. So,
Yeah, definitely.
um, yeah, and maybe I'll segue and tease a little bit, but this new account that we just had the privilege of landing, that's going to be a lot of fun because it really is. It's further proving out, or it's a chance for us to further prove out this philosophy around the fact that you get that to stability first by landing really good teams and understanding process and re-engineering process, so as to have that stable foundation. We're going to keep coming back to foundation constantly, I suppose, because that's who we are. We're the foundation guys, brought to you by. But this will be just yet another opportunity to then play with various different models in a particular harness to augment and supercharge a team to just do more than, hopefully, than the client ever dreamed of, and even that we ever dreamed of, that would be possible with the delivery hybrid, the human and AI agents working together kind of hybrid. So, um, yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Go
No,
team.
fun times.
Um, what else? What are we looking forward to? And can't believe it's August already. That's frightening. We're heading into the embers very soon.
The Burr months is
The Burr months,
yeah.
yeah, which I genuinely like, except that they really do sort of they signal the end of the year, and so you start to get antsy about the fact that the year is already ending. Um, but yeah, so I'll summarize. We've got a mixer in New York, August 27th. If you're interested, let us know. Spots filling up fast.
Yeah.
We're going to do one in London sometime
Yeah.
very soon, probably September, I think, just because I'm going to pop over there as soon as you can get your weather sorted out so it's a little cooler
So
and breezier. I want to wear jumpers. I want to come over and be able to put a sweater on. So
cool.
fix that for me, David. And
I'm on it.
then
And we've also got one coming up in your hometown. Is that right?
yeah, that's right. We got a Tampa. Yeah, that's right. We've got one coming up in Tampa. It's also in September. I'll have to look up the date. So yeah, my Tampa friends, stay tuned. We will invite you to that too. That one's going to be. I think we're going to have a bunch of mixers here, just because I'm having some really interesting discussions with. Again, I'm encouraged by the fact that the leadership, the execs, the PE firms that I'm speaking to, people are starting to come back to a bit more of a reasonable set of statements about where they are and where they want to be. Right.
Yes.
I mean, thankfully, I mean, there are still people who just decide, like, I've picked a model. We want to go enterprise wide with that model, like, as fast as possible. But every damn time I talk to somebody who's done that, 3, 6, 12 months later, they've done nothing, right? Because they emphasize speed over planning,
Yeah.
and the result is they have nothing to show for it, and just don't do that. Is my cautionary tale. Now there are some people who will say that like there's an element of speed and experimentation that you learn quite a bit from, and that's fine if you're equipped to do that. But most organizations aren't equipped for rapid, like fail fast kind of thing. Like it's great to say, but who's any good at that other than perhaps maybe highly funded startups? Um, you don't see large operating models and organizations that are equipped to do that sort of experimentation at scale.
And dare I say, I always find the fail fast analogy is always linked to the creative, the artist, the arts rather than the science, right?
Hmm.
I mean, you're welcome to fail fast and A/B test anything you like around, marketing and go to market, business development type activities, but you wouldn't do that on sort of paying out insurance claims, right? Just
Shipping and logistics or
yeah,
like financial planning and analysis. And like, man, we
exactly.
yeah,
Oh
we
well,
budgeted
yeah,
fast and wrong last quarter. That was fun. Let's try again. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we went bankrupt, but we failed fast,
Yeah.
so we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Like
All's good.
next
Like that
business
was
is
the
going to be
plan.
amazing. Yeah.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. There's a degree of this was a panel I was on months ago here in Tampa, where it was a finance room. It was a room full of like CFOs and various different financial controllers and things, and someone on stage that was the tech bro who was bragging about all of his Mac Minis, um,
Yeah.
made the point that like effectively they shouldn't take things so serious and they should start experimenting and doing really fast stuff and I couldn't help myself right after. I'm like you take stuff serious because you have serious jobs, right? Because
Yeah.
the environment you're in is serious, because the audit and control and compliance that you face every day and keep your organizations in line with are serious. So like that foolery
Yeah. That'll
like
get you fired. Yeah.
right, like do that in a
Or
side
in jail.
room as like a fun little like air gapped skunk works effort,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
your day job is a serious one, and most people have serious day jobs, and you just know that you need to approach it more seriously. So yeah, I mean I haven't talked to that guy since, but but I wasn't having it because I'm tired of the just sort of like just breathless enthusiasm about stuff in environments where that doesn't serve an organization well. And that's it, caveated. I've really only worked for the most part with massive enterprises, ones who do have all those controls and
Yeah.
constraints and risks on them, and so they need to be thoughtful about how they proceed. So, um, that feels like a good place to end this. Is me chastising someone else in public on a panel, and so um, know that if you invite me and you say something in your panel, I will call you on it.
Yes.
Um, okay, David. Thank you. Go get
It's been a
outside,
pleasure.
enjoy the weather. And we're probably going to hang up here and go and start standing up that new delivery team, which
Yeah,
I'm
we've got
very excited about. So
absolutely. Yeah,
so
back to the grind. There's
yep, with
lots
that,
of really good things going on. So
yeah.
we'll be happy to share
Um,
more in the coming weeks.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm so excited about that. So, okay, well, thank you, everybody who has listened to this point, to soon to be the world's greatest podcast on AI, agentics, and the future of work. If you're interested in town in New York area, do reach out. We'll put links to the session as well, or the mixer in the show notes. And with that, subscribe, follow us, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Magentic Show. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye bye.